The descent to Lumina was unlike anything Talia had ever experienced. The small transport pod hummed as it cut through layers of iridescent clouds, each one shimmering with colors that had no names in Earth's languages. Below, a landscape of floating islands and twisting crystal formations emerged, bathed in the soft glow of three distant suns. Talia pressed her palm against the curved window, leaving a foggy outline as she exhaled. 6 months of rigorous training, countless psychological evaluations, and seemingly endless bureaucratic hoops had led to this moment, being among the first humans selected for the Intergalactic Cultural Exchange initiative with the Luminari. "First time to Lumina?" asked the pilot, a friendly human woman named Juno who had made this journey dozens of times before. "Is it that obvious?" Talia laughed, tucking a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear. "The awe in your eyes gives it away. Everyone looks like that their first time." Juno smiled. "The Luminari home world tends to have that effect on people." Talia nodded, returning her gaze to the window. She was a botanist by training, specializing in interspecies plant grafting, skills the Luminari were eager to learn. But the real reason she had applied for the program was much more personal. After losing her parents in the Great Collapse, Earth held few ties for her. This was her chance at something new, something extraordinary. The pod descended toward a structure that resembled a massive flower, its translucent petals unfurled to welcome visitors to the central hub of Nyxara, the Luminari capital city. As they touched down, Talia gathered her few possessions, a small bag of personal items and a case containing her botanical tools and specimens. "Your host will meet you at the arrival chamber," Juno explained, helping Talia with her equipment. "Remember what they taught you in orientation. The Luminari experience emotions very differently than we do. They're empaths, so they'll sense what you're feeling before you even say a word." "I remember," Talia said, straightening her spine and taking a deep breath. "Emotional transparency is considered the highest form of respect." The doors of the pod slid open silently, revealing a cavernous space filled with dancing lights that seemed alive, responding to the movements and emotions of those passing through. Talia stepped out, immediately overwhelmed by the beauty surrounding her. The air itself felt charged with energy, carrying hints of sweet, floral scents she couldn't identify. And then she saw him. Standing apart from the other Luminari was a tall, elegant figure. His skin was a rich purple, so deep it almost appeared black in the shadows, with subtle patterns that shimmered when he moved, like stars appearing in the night sky. His eyes were large and luminous, silver irises encircled by a ring of pale lavender. He wore robes of flowing fabric that seemed to be woven from light itself, changing colors with each step he took. When his gaze met hers, Talia felt a strange sensation, like a gentle touch against her consciousness, curious but respectful. He approached with fluid grace, his bare feet making no sound on the crystalline floor. "You must be Talia Reeves," he said, his voice melodic with an accent that made each word sound like music. "I am Nyx. I have been assigned as your guide and host during your stay on Lumina." Talia extended her hand, then hesitated, remembering that Luminari greeting customs were different. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure how." Nyx smiled, the patterns on his skin brightening slightly. "No need for apologies. Cultural exchange is about learning." He raised his hand, palm forward, and Talia mirrored the gesture. Their palms hovered inches apart, and Talia felt a warm, tingling sensation between them. "This is how we greet those we welcome into our lives," Nyx explained. "We share a small piece of our emotional energy. May I?" Talia nodded, and Nyx's palm moved closer until it almost touched hers. The tingling intensified, and suddenly she felt a wave of calm curiosity wash over her. Nyx's emotions, she realized with wonder. "I can feel what you're feeling," she whispered. "Just a glimpse," Nyx replied, lowering his hand. "Our full empathic abilities are much deeper. It can be overwhelming for humans at first." As they walked through the city, Talia couldn't help but stare at everything around her. Buildings that seemed to grow organically from the ground, structures of crystal and living plants intertwined, and everywhere, Luminari with skin in shades of purple, blue, and green, moving with the same fluid grace as Nyx. "Your world is beautiful," she said, trying to take it all in. "It is very different from Earth, I imagine," Nyx replied, guiding her onto a floating platform that began to rise into the air without any visible means of propulsion. "Very on Earth everything is, more solid, more defined. Here, everything seems to flow into everything else. Nyx nodded. The boundaries between things are often illusions. We Luminari understand this deeply. He glanced at her, his silver eyes reflecting the ambient light. Just as the boundaries between people can be illusions, too. The platform carried them away from the city center, ascending gently toward a cluster of dwellings nestled among tall, swaying structures that resembled trees but were made of crystal. Nyx's home was nestled among them, a graceful structure with curved walls and large, open spaces where light poured in from all directions. "This will be your home during your stay," Nyx said, helping her with her bags. "My dwelling has been adapted to accommodate human needs." Inside, Talia was surprised to find the space both alien and familiar, strange materials and designs, but arranged in ways that made intuitive sense. There was a sleeping area with a bed designed for a human body, a food preparation space, and what appeared to be a living area with furniture that seemed to grow directly from the floor. "It's perfect," she said, genuinely touched by the thoughtfulness. "Thank you." Nyx's skin patterns brightened again, a response to positive emotions, Talia realized. "I've studied human customs extensively to prepare for your arrival. Still, I expect there will be adjustments for both of us." Something in his tone made Talia look up. There was a vulnerability in his expression that surprised her. Despite his otherworldly appearance, the emotion was unmistakably familiar. "Are you nervous about this too?" she asked. Nyx hesitated, then nodded. Luminari seldom hide their feelings from each other. It would be difficult given our abilities, but with humans it's different. You're so emotionally complex, yet so. He searched for the word. Contained, it's fascinating but challenging. I worry about misunderstandings. Talia smiled, setting down her botanical case. "Well, that makes two of us, but isn't that the point of this exchange? To learn from each other, misunderstandings and all." "Indeed," Nyx's expression lightened. "Come, I'll show you the rest of the dwelling. Tomorrow we can begin your orientation to Lumina properly." As Talia followed him through the space that would be her home for the next year, she felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. She had come here seeking something new, an escape from her solitary life on Earth. Looking at Nyx, with his starlit skin and silver eyes, she couldn't help but wonder if she'd found much more than she had bargained for. What would it be like, she wondered, to live with someone who could feel her every emotion? Someone who could see past all the careful barriers humans constructed around their hearts. And why did that thought make her pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear? As if sensing her thoughts, Nyx turned and caught her gaze, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Your journey has just begun, Talia Reeves," he said softly. "Welcome to Lumina. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses." Talia woke to a room bathed in soft amber light. For a moment, disorientation clouded her mind. The curved walls, the strange texture of the bedding that seemed to adjust to her body's contours, the gentle humming that permeated the air. Then it all came rushing back. She was on Lumina, galaxies away from Earth, living in the home of a being who could sense her emotions as easily as she could see colors. She sat up slowly, running her fingers through her tangled hair. 2 weeks had passed since her arrival, and each day had brought new wonders and challenges. The Luminari Botanical Center where she would be working had welcomed her expertise, and she had already begun teaching them earth grafting techniques that they found fascinating. Their own methods of cultivating plants, using emotional energy to stimulate growth, were unlike anything she had ever seen. But it was her interactions with Nyx that occupied most of her thoughts. Living with an empath required a level of emotional honesty that was foreign to her. On Earth, she had always been the quiet one, the observer who kept her feelings carefully guarded. Here, such barriers were not just transparent to Nyx, they were considered impolite. "Good morning," Nyx's melodic voice called from beyond her doorway. "May I enter?" "Yes, come in," Talia replied, quickly smoothing down her sleep shirt. The door, if it could be called that, being more of a shimmering veil of energy, parted and Nyx stepped through. Today his robes were the color of dawn, shifting between pale rose and gold. The patterns on his purple skin seemed more vivid in the morning light, forming constellations that appeared to move with his breathing. "I've prepared morning sustenance," he said, setting down a tray of what Talia had come to recognize as Luminari breakfast foods. Crystal fruits that dissolved on the tongue, releasing bursts of flavor, and a warm beverage that tasted something like honey and cinnamon, but was unlike anything Earth had to offer. Thank you, she said, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. You don't have to keep doing this, you know. Nix tilted his head. The gesture she'd learned meant curiosity. Does it make you uncomfortable? I sense conflicted feelings. Talia smiled ruefully. This was exactly what made living with him both fascinating and disconcerting, the way he could immediately detect her emotional state, often before she had fully processed it herself. Not uncomfortable exactly, she explained, taking a sip of the honeyed drink. It's just that on Earth I was always very independent. Having someone care for me like this feels unfamiliar. Ah, Nick said, his expression brightening with understanding. In our culture, caring for others is not seen as diminishing their independence, but as honoring their presence in our lives. He hesitated, then added, but I will respect your human customs if you prefer. No, Talia said quickly, surprising herself with her vehemence. I like it. It's nice to be seen. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. To be seen by a luminari was to be truly known in ways that went beyond the physical. Speaking of seeing, Nix continued, today I thought I might show you the Resonant Gardens. It's a special place, even by luminari standards. I think your botanical expertise would appreciate it. After finishing her breakfast and changing into the lightweight clothing that had been provided for her, fabrics that somehow adjusted to maintain perfect body temperature regardless of the environment, Talia followed Nix through the city. The morning air was filled with the sounds of luminari going about their daily activities. Unlike human cities with their noise and hurry, Nyxara moved with a fluid rhythm, each being seeming to anticipate the movements of others. There were no vehicles as Talia understood them. Instead, floating platforms carried people and goods through the air, guided by thought and emotional intent. How do you do that? Talia asked as they stepped onto one such platform, which immediately began to rise and move in the direction of the distant crystal formations. Make it move where you want to go. Nick smiled, the silver in his eyes catching the light. We focus our intention and emotional energy. The platform responds to that energy. He paused, studying her face. Would you like to try? Talia's eyes widened. Can I? I'm not Luminari. I don't have your abilities. All beings have emotional energy, Nix replied, his voice gentle. Yours is different but strong in its own way. Here. He took her hand, his touch sending a strange, tingling sensation up her arm. Close your eyes, think about where we're going, the gardens, picture them in your mind. But I've never seen them, Talia protested. Then picture a garden as you understand it, and feel your desire to go there. Feeling slightly foolish but too curious to refuse, Talia closed her eyes. She thought of the botanical gardens back on Earth, the peace she'd always felt among growing things, and her excitement to see what luminari gardens might be like. As she focused, she felt something shift, not just in her mind, but in the air around her, as if her thoughts were creating ripples in reality itself. Look, Nix whispered. Talia opened her eyes to see the platform accelerating, its surface glowing faintly beneath their feet. Nix's expression was one of delighted surprise. You've done it, he said, his skin patterns brightening dramatically. Few non-luminari manage this on their first attempt. Pride warmed Talia's chest, followed by a wave of something else, a deep contentment at having pleased him. The platform seemed to respond to this new emotion too, the glow beneath them intensifying. They arrived at the Resonant Gardens minutes later. From a distance, it had appeared to be a collection of crystal formations, but up close, Talia could see that it was much more. Living plants grew in and around the crystals, their roots and stems twinning through transparent structures, creating an otherworldly fusion of organic and inorganic life. This is incredible, she breathed as they walked through an archway formed by two massive crystals that chimed softly as they passed beneath. How do the plants survive inside the crystal? The crystals are not solid as they appear, Nix explained, leading her deeper into the garden. They are a form of solidified emotional energy created over centuries by generations of luminari gardeners. They nourish the plants in ways that soil and water cannot. As they ventured further, the garden grew more spectacular. Flowers that changed colors as they approached, vines that reached out as if to touch them before shyly retreating, fruits that seemed to glow from within with a pulsing light. And this, Nix said, stopping at the edge of a small clearing, is what I particularly wanted you to see. In the center of the clearing stood a single plant unlike any Talia had ever encountered. Its stem was crystalline, transparent enough to see a luminous fluid flowing through it like sap. Its leaves were a deep blue-black, resembling the night sky, with tiny points of light that mirrored the patterns on Nyx's skin. And at its center was a flower unlike any other, petals that unfurled and contracted in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, shifting between crimson, violet, and a blue so deep it was almost black. "We call it the heart flower," Nyx said softly. "It responds to emotional energy more directly than any other plant in our world. Watch." He stepped closer to the plant and closed his eyes. The flower immediately began to pulse more rapidly, its colors shifting toward the violet end of the spectrum. Tiny motes of light rose from its center, dancing in the air before dissolving like sparks. "It's responding to your feelings," Talia realized aloud. Nyx nodded, opening his eyes. "Now you try." Hesitantly, Talia approached the plant. At first, nothing happened, and she felt a pang of disappointment. But then, slowly, the flower began to respond, its petals stretching toward her, the colors shifting to shades of amber and gold she hadn't seen before. "Fascinating," Nyx murmured, watching the flower with intense interest. "I've never seen it respond quite like that to anyone." "Is that good?" Talia asked, uncertain. "It's unique," Nyx replied, his voice soft with wonder. "Like you." Their eyes met over the glowing blossom, and Talia felt her cheeks warm with a blush she couldn't hide, not from someone who could sense her emotions. The attraction she felt toward Nyx had been growing steadily since her arrival, but she had tried to keep it contained, uncertain of how such feelings would be received across their vastly different cultures. But now, looking into his silver eyes, seeing the way his skin patterns brightened when they were together, she wondered if perhaps he felt something similar. As if in response to her thoughts, the heart flower suddenly erupted in a shower of golden light, tiny luminescent particles floating upward to surround them both. "What's happening?" Talia asked, startled but not afraid. Nyx's expression was one of amazement. "The heart flower is responding to the resonance between us. It's rare for it to react so strongly." "Resonance," she repeated, the word tingling on her tongue. "When two beings' emotional energies align in harmony," he explained, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "It's something we value deeply in our culture, a sign of compatibility." The word hung between them, full of possibility. Talia's heart raced, and she knew Nyx could sense her reaction. But rather than feeling exposed, she found herself relieved. Here, at least, there was no need for the games and uncertainties that often plagued human relationships. Here, emotions were honored for what they were: truth. "Nyx," she began, not entirely sure what she wanted to say, but feeling the need to say something. But before she could continue, the peaceful atmosphere was shattered by the arrival of another luminary, a female with skin of deep blue and eyes that flashed like polished onyx. She moved with such fluid grace that she seemed to float rather than walk, her robes a cascade of midnight blue and silver. "Nyx," the newcomer said, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "I've been looking for you." Her gaze fell on Talia, and her expression cooled noticeably. "And this must be the human visitor." "Yes," Nyx replied, straightening slightly. "Talia, this is Ondine, one of our most gifted emotional healers. Ondine, this is Talia Reeves from Earth." Ondine inclined her head slightly, but her eyes never left Talia's face. "Welcome to Lumina. I hope you're finding our world educational." There was something in her tone that made Talia feel distinctly unwelcome, though her words were polite enough. She couldn't help but wonder if Ondine could sense the attraction she felt toward Nyx, and if that was the source of her apparent displeasure. "Very educational," Talia replied, determined to remain cordial. "Your world is beautiful beyond anything I could have imagined." "Indeed," Ondine said coolly. "Beauty can be deceiving, however. Not everything that shimmers is meant to be touched." Her gaze flickered to Nyx meaningfully. "The Council is waiting for your report on the Human Exchange Program, Nyx. They sent me to find you." "Of course," Nyx said, though Talia thought she detected a note of reluctance in his voice. "Talia, would you mind if we continued our tour another time?" "Not at all," she assured him, though disappointment settled in her chest like a stone. As Nyx left with Ondine, Talia couldn't help but notice how the blue-skinned woman moved closer to him than seemed necessary, her hand brushing his arm in a gesture that appeared possessive even to human eyes. The moment they were gone, Talia looked back at the heart flower, which had dimmed considerably. Its petals were now a muted blue-gray, closing slowly as if in slumber, or sadness. "I know how you feel," Talia murmured to the plant, gently touching one of its leaves. As she did, a single spark of golden light flickered briefly before fading away, leaving her alone with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. 3.7 Sonnet. The following weeks brought a rhythm to Talia's life on Lumina. Mornings were spent at the Botanical Center, where she divided her time between teaching earth grafting techniques and learning the mysterious ways luminari cultivated their crystalline flora. Afternoons often found her exploring the city with Nyx, absorbing the culture and beauty of his world. Evenings were quiet affairs, sharing meals and conversation in the dwelling they now comfortably shared. But beneath this pleasant routine, tensions simmered like underground currents. Since their interrupted moment at the Resonant Gardens, something had shifted between Talia and Nyx. Neither spoke of it directly, but Talia often caught him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. His skin patterns would brighten whenever she entered a room, a luminary response to strong emotion that he couldn't hide even if cultural politeness dictated he should. And then there was Ondine, whose presence had become a constant shadow over their interactions. The blue-skinned empath seemed to appear whenever Talia and Nyx were enjoying a moment of closeness, her dark eyes flashing with emotions Talia couldn't read but could certainly feel: disapproval, possessiveness, perhaps even jealousy. Today, Talia sat alone in the Botanical Center, carefully documenting the growth patterns of a hybrid plant she had created, a fusion of earth orchid and luminari crystal vine. The result was stunning: delicate white blooms with crystalline veins that caught the light, suspended on vines that seemed to dance to music only they could hear. "Your work continues to impress," came a familiar voice. Talia looked up to see Verath, one of the elder luminari botanists. His skin was a deep forest green lined with age, the patterns more fixed than those of younger luminari. His eyes, though, remained sharp and bright, filled with wisdom and kindness. "Thank you," she replied, genuinely pleased with his approval. Verath had been her strongest ally at the center, defending her earth methods when others had been skeptical. "I think this hybrid might actually be viable long-term. The crystalline properties seem to strengthen the orchid's structure rather than overpower it." Verath moved closer, studying the plant with experienced eyes. "Indeed, a beautiful harmony between two very different species." He paused, his gaze shifting to her face. "Not unlike other harmonies we have observed recently." Talia felt her cheeks warm. The luminary tendency toward emotional directness still caught her off guard sometimes. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said, though she suspected she did. "Your emotional resonance with Nyx," Verath said simply. "It is unusual, strong, many have noticed." Talia set down her tools, unsure how to respond. On Earth, such a direct comment about her feelings would have been considered intrusive, but here, emotions were discussed as openly as the weather. "Is that a problem?" she asked carefully. Verath's expression softened. "Not to me. I have lived long enough to recognize that beauty often emerges from unexpected places." He gestured to her hybrid plant. "But others are less adaptable in their thinking." "Like Ondine," Talia said, the words escaping before she could stop them. "Ah, you have perceived her resistance," Verath nodded. "Ondine is traditional. She believes emotional bonds should remain within our species, and," he hesitated, "she has long harbored hopes for a connection with Nyx." This confirmation of what Talia had suspected didn't surprise her, but it did send a twinge of something, not quite jealousy, but perhaps uncertainty, through her chest. "I see. What you may not see," Verath continued gently, "is the effect your emotions are having on Nyx. Human emotions are different from ours, more intense in some ways, less controlled. For an empath as sensitive as Nyx, prolonged exposure can be overwhelming." Talia looked up sharply. "Am I hurting him?" "Not hurting, no," Verath was quick to reassure her. "But challenging, perhaps, like introducing a new element into a delicate ecosystem. There is adjustment required on both sides." Before Talia could ask more questions, the door to the laboratory slid open, and Nyx himself entered. Today his robes were a deep indigo that complemented his purple skin, and his silver eyes seemed to light up when they fell on her. "Talia," he said, his voice warm, "I've come to escort you to the Twilight Festival. It begins soon." Verath inclined his head respectfully to them both. "We will continue our discussion another time, perhaps." he said to Talia before departing, leaving her with more questions than answers. The Twilight Festival was one of Lumina's most important cultural events, celebrating the rare alignment of the three suns that bathed the planet in multicolored light for a few hours. The streets of Nyxara were filled with luminari in ceremonial attire, their skin patterns glowing more brightly than usual in response to the collective joy. As Talia walked beside Nyx through the crowded plaza, she couldn't help but feel self-conscious. Her human appearance, her cream-colored skin, her red-gold hair, her solid form without the flowing grace of the luminari marked her as an outsider. She felt eyes upon her, curious at best, judgmental at worst. "You're uncomfortable," Nyx observed quietly, his hand lightly touching her elbow. "Your emotions are turbulent." Talia sighed. There was no hiding from an empath. "I'm just very aware of being different here." Nyx's expression softened. "Different is not lesser, Talia. Your uniqueness is." He paused, searching for the right word, "precious to me." The sincerity in his voice made something flutter in her chest. They had reached the central plaza now, where a large crystalline structure had been erected. As they watched, it began to capture and refract the light from the three suns, casting rainbows that danced across the assembled crowd. "It's beautiful," Talia whispered, momentarily forgetting her discomfort. "Yes," Nyx agreed, but when she glanced at him, she found he wasn't looking at the light display. He was looking at her, his expression one of quiet wonder. For a moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. The noise of the crowd, the spectacular light show, even the lingering concerns from her conversation with Verath, all receded into the background. There was only Nyx, his silver eyes holding hers, his emotions reaching out to touch her consciousness like gentle fingers. Then, without warning, Ondine appeared beside them, resplendent in robes of shimmering azure that matched her blue skin. "Nyx," she said, her musical voice pitched to carry over the crowd's murmurs. "The Elder Council wishes you to join them for the ceremonial viewing. It's a great honor." Her gaze flicked dismissively to Talia. "For Luminari only, I'm afraid." Nyx hesitated, looking torn. "Talia is my guest." "The council was specific," Ondine interrupted, placing a hand possessively on his arm. "It would be disrespectful to decline." Nyx looked at Talia apologetically. "I should go. Will you be all right here? I won't be long." "Of course," Talia assured him, though disappointment welled within her. "Go, it's an honor, like Ondine said." As Nyx allowed himself to be led away, Ondine cast a triumphant glance back at Talia. The message was clear. Talia might have Nyx's interest, but Ondine had society's approval on her side. Left alone in the crowd, Talia tried to focus on the beauty of the festival, but her mind kept returning to Verath's words. Was she overwhelming Nyx with her emotions? Was that why he seemed torn between her and his own people? A ripple of excitement went through the crowd as the three suns reached perfect alignment. The crystalline structure in the center of the plaza captured the converging light and transformed it into a spectacular display, flowing colors that took shapes in the air, telling stories from luminary history and mythology. Under different circumstances, Talia would have been enthralled. "The human looks lost," came a voice beside her, startling Talia from her thoughts. She turned to find another luminari observing her. His skin was a deep crimson, his patterns subtle but elegant, his eyes a burnished gold that seemed to see right through her. "I'm not lost," she replied, straightening her posture. "Just contemplating." He said, unconvinced. "I am Finn, by the way, botanical engineer. I've heard about your work at the center." "You have?" Talia was surprised. She hadn't realized her experiments were being discussed outside the laboratory. "Indeed, your hybrid creations are controversial, but intriguing." There was something about the way he said controversial that made Talia wonder if he was still talking about plants. "Innovation often is controversial at first," she replied carefully. Finn's mouth curved into a smile, just as cross-species emotional resonance can be. So they weren't talking about plants after all. "Is everyone on Lumina concerned with my personal feelings?" Talia asked, frustration flaring unexpectedly. "When they affect one of our most promising empaths?" "Yes." Finn's directness was startling, even by luminary standards. "Nyx has a bright future ahead of him. The Council has had their eye on him for important work that might be complicated by strong emotional attachments to beings whose lifespans are but a blink compared to ours." This was a new perspective, and it hit Talia like a physical blow. She had known, intellectually, that Luminari lived for centuries, while humans rarely reached even one. But she hadn't considered how that might affect any relationship between herself and Nyx. "I don't," she began, but Finn continued as if she hadn't spoken. "And then there are the physiological concerns. Did you know that prolonged exposure to intense human emotions can create a form of dependency in Luminari empaths? Like your Earth concept of addiction. The emotional high is intoxicating, but ultimately destabilizing." "That's not true," came Nyx's voice, sharp with a rare anger. He had returned without either of them noticing, his skin patterns flaring with agitation. "You spread dangerous misinformation, Finn." Finn inclined his head, unperturbed. "I merely share concerns that many have expressed in the council chambers, concerns you might have shared with your human guest yourself." With that, he glided away, leaving tension in his wake. Nyx turned to Talia, his expression troubled. "I'm sorry, Finn is traditional in his views." "Like Ondine?" Talia couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "Like the council that called you away, like everyone who keeps looking at me as if I'm contaminating their world somehow." The frustrations of the past weeks were bubbling to the surface now, beyond her control. "Talia," Nyx reached for her, but she stepped back. "Is it true?" she demanded. "Am I addictive to you, overwhelming? Varath said my emotions were challenging for you." Nyx's expression showed surprise, then understanding. "Ah, now I see," he sighed, his silver eyes clouded with conflicting emotions. "Human emotions are different from ours, yes, more. Vibrant in some ways, being around you is indeed intense, but not in the way Finn implied." "Then in what way?" Talia pressed, needing to understand. Nyx struggled visibly with how to explain. Imagine living in a world where all music is played softly in minor keys, beautiful but subdued. Then suddenly hearing a symphony played in a major key with all the passion and volume the musicians can muster. It's shocking at first. Overwhelming, yes, but also exhilarating. That's what your emotions feel like to me. Not an addiction, an awakening. His words should have been reassuring, but they only heightened Talia's confusion. "And is that a good thing? Or am I disrupting your life, your future with the council, whatever is between you and Ondine?" "There is nothing between Ondine and me," Nyx said firmly. "She wishes there were, but I have never encouraged those hopes." "But she's right for you in all the ways I'm not," Talia argued, hatting the words even as she spoke them. "She's Luminari. She understands your culture, your lifespan, your abilities. She has the approval of your people." "And none of that matters if there is no resonance," Nyx replied, stepping closer. This time Talia didn't back away. "Emotional compatibility is sacred to us, Talia, more important than cultural similarity or social approval." His voice dropped lower, more intense. "And what I feel with you, I have never felt with anyone else, Luminari or otherwise." The confession hung in the air between them, as tangible as the light patterns still dancing overhead. Talia's heart pounded so hard she was sure he could sense it, even without his empathic abilities. "I need time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "To think this is all a lot to process." Nyx nodded, respecting her request, though she could see it cost him. "Of course, I will escort you back to our dwelling." They walked in silence through the festival crowd, the gap between them small in physical distance, but vast in emotional space. Talia was acutely aware of the curious glances from passing Luminari, wondering if they could sense the turmoil of emotions between her and Nyx. Back at their shared home, Nyx paused at the entrance. "I will give you the privacy you need," he said softly. "I will stay with a friend tonight." Talia nodded, unable to find words. As she watched him walk away, his purple form gradually disappearing into the twilight, she felt a hollowness open up inside her chest. A sensation that had nothing to do with being on an alien world and everything to do with the growing fear that she had found something precious only to discover it might be impossible. Inside, she moved to the window overlooking the crystalline gardens. The luminary night was beginning, bringing with it a soft bioluminescence from plants and structures alike. It was heartbreakingly beautiful, just like everything on this world. Including Nyx. Was Finn right? Was any attachment between them doomed from the start? A brief, bright flame destined to burn out quickly, leaving Nyx with centuries to mourn what could never have lasted. Talia pressed her hand against the cool, transparent surface of the window, watching as her breath fogged the material. Even in this small action, the difference between her and the Luminari was apparent. They didn't leave marks on their world the way humans did. They existed in harmony, while humans always seemed to disrupt. And yet, the hybrid plant she had created came to mind. Earth orchid and luminary crystal vine, two species that should have been incompatible, now growing together in beautiful harmony. Different but complementary, stronger together than apart. Could the same be true for her and Nyx? Outside, one of Lumina's moons rose above the horizon, casting a silver glow across the landscape, the same silver as Nyx's eyes when they looked at her with wonder. Talia's throat tightened with emotion. She had come to Lumina seeking a new beginning, a place where she might belong after feeling adrift on Earth. Instead, she had found something she never expected, a connection that transcended worlds but brought with it complications she hadn't imagined. As she watched the moonlight transform the alien landscape into a realm of silver and shadow, Talia knew she was facing the most important decision of her life. And for the first time since arriving on Lumina, she wished that Nyx was there to sense her emotions, because her own human heart was too confused to make sense of them alone. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.